I want to help the audience understand how it is that Albanians who've illegally entered Britain from a country that is deemed to be a safe country, a NATO member, a NATO ally, they use the Modern Slavery Act of 2015, which, you know, we're all sure was legislation passed with best intentions. How linked is that legislation to the European Convention on Human Rights and indeed the Human Rights Act?
Thank you, Nigel. Well, in part it implements some of the provisions of the ECHR. The ECHR contains several articles providing broad rights for people, for everybody, immigrants and non-immigrants. Article 4, for example, provides a prohibition on slavery and forced labour. The Modern Slavery Act of 2015 provides provisions that implement that article, in part, into domestic law, but also provides a mechanism for determining and ascertaining whether one is a victim of trafficking. So there's a procedure in the Act where there's a fact-finding exercise to determine whether one is a victim of trafficking. And if the determination is that a person is a victim of trafficking or slavery, then that may be the basis for a human rights or protection claim to stay in the UK in that context.
And if the British courts didn't agree, they could go to the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg.
So there is an appeals process, and there is an appeals process domestically, in theory all the way up to the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court if need be. Once everything's exhausted, then there may be a potential pathway to the Strasbourg Court, yes.
Again, we come back to this, because look, you know, the Rwanda policy, and I know you know a lot about this and what the government was trying to do. I mean, in the end, you know, at 10 o'clock at night, some nameless judge in Strasbourg, you know, makes the whole thing shudder to a halt and makes us reconsider everything. I mean, is there still, in your profession, the legal profession, and in Whitehall, is there still this belief that we have to stick to ECHR in Brexit Britain?
I suppose there is, in the sense that we've heard Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak in recent debates talk about sorting this out and sorting the problem and making the Rwanda policy work, and there's been little snippets about withdrawing from the ECHR or reconsidering our position.
Yeah, ish. Yeah.
But the fact is, we've recently had a consultation on the Human Rights Act, the 1998 Human Rights Act, which is our implementation of the ECHR. That consultation specifically says we have an ongoing commitment to remain in the ECHR, to remain in the Council of Europe. So that consultation is there. So if you're going to tinker with that, then that already renders the consultation perhaps unlawful, because you have to start the whole process again, because all the answers and input to that consultation is based on the premise that we will remain in the ECHR. Moreover, for example, in our recent EU-UK trade agreement and cooperation agreement, that also reaffirms the commitment to the ECHR. So it doesn't seem that there's any political will for that to change.
It's written into the devolution settlements, and it's everywhere. It's written right the way through the system,
intertwined into our sort of legal and political landscape, yes.
All right, well, a final thought, important one, though, because both Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss say they support the Rwanda policy, and they'll look to Rwanda and other locations. Can the Rwanda policy work all the while we're part of ECHR?
Perhaps not, because both have said that they want to make the Rwanda policy work. What does that mean? If it means getting it off the ground, that's one thing. If it means sustaining the policy, that's an entire different ballgame altogether. And even if you can get it off the ground, what will happen is, as the data is collected years down the line, months down the line, there'll be individual challenges on a case-by-case basis, because you'll have the data to ascertain trends. Is Rwanda discriminating against a particular group, a particular religion? Is it discriminating against, for example, fellow Africans who are claiming asylum? So once you have the individual snippets of data, you can have a certain sort of cluster claimed against the policy. And if that eventually crumbles, then the entire framework will crumble pursuant to that.